Hello and welcome to the sample resume video for the work experience module. I'm putting this video up early so that people who wish to start the application process now can do so using this tool and at the same time satisfy one of the requirements of the course. So you're going to be expected to submit a resume that uses the exact format I'm about to walk through. And in order to do that, you'll need to use Word, or you can access the OpenOffice program on the internet. Everybody in the school has access to Word for free. OpenOffice is also free. If you're a person who's using a Mac and you want to use Pages, I'm not sure if it's convertible or if you'll have to retype it, but I believe you can open the Word file and type over it even in Pages. You'll be expected to submit a 100% error-free resume by the due date, and the due date is marked on the module on the class page on the website. And that means there should be literally no typos, no formatting inconsistencies, and no spelling mistakes. So they literally need to look exactly as clean as the sample. And that means you should proofread it carefully. You should have other people proofread for you. And yes, it can get a bit tedious to do this. So the less time you have to go back and do that, probably the happier you'll be. It's a smart idea to submit it early as a draft document. Let me know that it's there so I can go take a look and give you commentary, because it has to have all the errors removed by the due date. And there's plenty of time, but you'll find it's a much more comfortable process if you do this early on, and you'll be able to use this resume to start seeking work. You can also get editing help from me in other ways, and if you're having any trouble using the document as a template, then you can get help from me as well. You'll find the sample document under assignments and in the document section, and you'll also see the resume sample that I'm going to show you, the example one, in the document section, so you can take a look at it. You'll also need to produce a cover letter, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. Resumes typically don't change very much when you apply. They change over the years as you gain more experience, but when you apply to multiple employers, your resume itself is usually pretty much the same. Your cover letter, however, is individualized for every single employer, and we'll talk about that separately. You may also be asked to attach other documents when you apply. That'll be basically at the employer's discretion, so it might be copies of first aid certificates or of your transcript or of your certificate from the college. So that's different, but I won't be requiring that in the class. I would strongly recommend to you that when you're finished with this assignment, you keep it someplace where you know it's going to be findable. And not only just on your computer, but a smart thing is to put it on some kind of a flash drive and put that in a drawer. Keep nothing on there but your resume, because there's nothing more tedious than having to go back and retype your whole resume when you see a chance for a transfer or a promotion or a training opportunity, or you just wish to go and find a whole new job. If you can take out your old resume and just update it, it'll make life so much easier. And if you have a deadline in terms of applying for something, again, it's so much easier. So keep updating your resume as time passes, and save it with a new file name that includes its year or even month and year that it was produced. Every new experience, every new training course, every new recertification is a reason to go back and update your resume. Okay, let's jump over to the Word documents and show you what you're going to be working with. So first of all, I'm going to open up the document that you'll use as your template. And so this is available, as I said, on the website, on the course page, as both an assignment and under the documents listing. And you can just literally open it up, and to type into it, you're simply going to highlight the part you want to type into and type over it. What you want to make sure is that you keep the formatting exactly the same. So for example, here where it says your name, you'll notice there's a space in between each letter, and it's in large capitals. It's 14 font. So don't change the font or formatting at all. Don't try to make your resume stand out for the wrong reasons. I've seen people use pink paper and paper with borders, and I've seen people add their photograph, and I've even had people do things like spray it with perfume. And those things not only don't work, but they actually really leave people scratching their heads about what kind of a person doesn't understand the professional social codes. So understated really makes sense. And trust me when I say that this format has been used with great success by students over the years. This is why I want you to use this format. You're newcomers to the field. You want people to have something to look at, even though you don't have a very thick resume yet. And you also want to signal to local employers that you came from a place that they really value. And this is kind of the Riverside format. So keep it the same way. In order to type in, simply select the document in the area that you want to type and just start typing over it. Make sure you're typing the correct thing. Here it says personal characteristic or experience. And I would prefer, if you have it, to talk about experience. So for example, I might say something like this: babysitter for children with autism, if that was actually relevant. And then I would go down from there. So you'll find it a far easier process. I don't know what happened there. Sorry. I just undid this so I can leave my template. But you'll find it a far easier process if you don't change formatting for this document. And the undo button is your best buddy. Now, the next thing you're going to see is the relevant experience. Now, sometimes people put education first, sometimes people put experience first, and you may later on choose to go back and change this in your document, and that's entirely up to you. But what normally happens is you kind of start with your strengths, and that's why this is first. You have some experience that's going to probably mean a lot to people. You've started off with a course, but you haven't yet got something like a university level education. So it's going to matter mostly to the employers that you're looking at that your experience is relevant. You can change it if you are asked by employers to do that, or you simply do get sort of a better list of things in the education category. And this is particularly likely if you go on to pursue careers like teaching, where education kind of has primacy, where people care about it the most. You'll notice that I have created spaces here so that you can tell when I'm into a new section. What you'll also notice is that this header is not on a separate page than the content below it. For example, we would not want this. This is what's called orphaning. Now this doesn't make any sense. It's all by itself, and this is all by itself. So instead, we want to make sure that we don't have spaces that don't belong, okay? And we want the spaces to be consistent. We want the capitalization to be consistent. That's for something that people really find tricky along the way. Make sure that your document uses the same formatting throughout, as tricky as that might seem to be. Here's another technical thing for people. You'll see that this is gray and everything else is a darker black. And the reason is that this is in the footer. The footer is the part of the document that will show up on every page. If I make an edit, it shows up in every page. And this is really where you want to put your contact information. To get to it, all I did was double click on it. And if I want to get out of it, I go to the part I want to go on. I double click on it. Another choice is to go to View and Header and Footer. And now, whether it's the top or the bottom of the page, I'm editing it. So I'll show you what it looks like when I do this. If I change my name, oops, you'll see that it does it on all of the pages. I'm going to undo that again so that I have the clean template for people who want to edit it later on. I'm not going to leave this stuff. Okay, so again, to get back out of the header, I can click on here. You can also see that my particular Mac version of this program, I can close it here. But the most common thing to do is simply click on the gray print and it becomes black. All right, make sure that you check for spelling. Sometimes you'll come to things like food safe and they look like they're spelling errors because the document doesn't recognize that there's sort of a branded way of spelling something. For example, the product Kleenex is spelled with a K instead of with a C. And these are examples of things that computers think are spelling mistakes. So you want to check and make sure that it's not really a spelling mistake. You're also going to see that we do a references section later on. And I wanted to show you one technical thing here before we move on to this. And that is, how do I fill in the references section? Well, one of the things that's cool about Microsoft Office is I can go to Draw right here, select Draw, and I've already chosen a black pen. You can see that it gives you various colors. I want black or blue. I'll pretend to do blue just for the sake of this. And you can see it's now a dot. And so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to type, or I'm going to, write my name down in here. And that's how I'm going to do it. Well, that doesn't look like my autograph. I'll fix it. I'll do it again. I simply clicked on redo and I did it again until it looks like me. And I'm just using my mouse or the trackpad to do this, okay? And you'll be able to save it afterwards. These other blanks, go back and turn off Draw, back to my home. I can just type in the name of the thing I want there. So Mission Community Services, by simply highlighting the line, I can now replace it with text. And so now I can change the same thing with the date down below. I'm going to undo them all so that I have a nice clean document. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the technical with this. A lot of it's already typed in for you, but I would really strongly encourage you to reach out to me if you are overwhelmed by the technological or if I went too quickly. That's not the main purpose of this video, so don't be too worried about that. We can work through it later. Here's what your resume will look like though. So here's mine. I've fictionalized it so that I'm more like a student in the class. And so I've simply put in here some of the content that was already there. And I had to add these 3 bullet points. Well, I started off with experience because experience speaks much louder to employers than your self-report of how wonderful you are. So do that, and do resist the temptation to add more bullet points. I don't want you to have 7 and I don't want you to have 5. This tends to be the perfect amount, and don't change the formatting of the box. Down here you start with your relevant experience and you put the most recent relevant experience and then work backwards. Notice it's focused on relevant experience. So if you worked at a daycare, you might include this. If you have taught at a preschool, you might include it. If you were a swimming instructor, you might include it. And certainly your practica and your clinical placements would go here. Anything where you've got more than, say, a day or 2 of work as a volunteer would likely go here. And you can optionally include, if the person's still there, their contact information. Again, it just sort of communicates to employers that you're willing to be reached or have them be reached. And we're going to do that again later on. All right. Notice that I didn't put the specific date that I started my practicum. I put the months. And I used the correct name in terms of this. Okay. Now down here is a section that says other experience. And here's where I would put things that might not seem as related to the professional area I'm going into. In this case, I've added things like being a retail salesperson for a paint store and an estimator. And you might think, well, why would I include that if it's not relevant? Well, I can tell you as an employer, repeatedly, it was impressive to me to find out what people had done in the past in terms of their interests, their talents, and just their personal attributes. So if you're an estimator, it tells me you're good with math and you're organized. If you're a salesperson or a server at a restaurant or a taxi or Uber driver, you're telling me you must have good social skills, good professionalism, ability to work with people who can be difficult. If you're a horse trainer, you're telling me you might know where horses are, and I have people who are interested in horses. You might be somebody who can help me to get my individuals some horse riding. Same thing with gardening, right? Or softball. Those are soft skills or home skills that are often translatable into the workplace. And you might think being a father, well, why would I put that there? Well, it tells again a little bit about who you are, and it also makes you more relatable. And I'll tell you something, if you're sitting in an interview with somebody and they say, oh, where do you coach softball? And the next thing you know, you're in a conversation about where they've coached softball. Well, you're going to get the job, right? It's a really amazing dynamic that if you can start to have a conversation about your personal interests and your personal talents, then usually you're in pretty good shape. So revealing a little bit about yourself in this way fleshes out the resume in a place that might otherwise be blank, and also can often be a really important relationship starter. I've made sure I didn't orphan this heading or this heading, and I've gone to a new page to have my relevant education. I started with the most recent and most important. Sometimes the most recent isn't the most important, so I would choose the most important before the most recent. Let me say that again. If you have a college degree and you got first aid most recently, put the college degree first. It's the most important. So what if I haven't finished? Well, I can use the word projected or expect to complete. If you know you're going to win a scholarship or other award, you can include that as well. If you don't, you take it out. And then I started going backwards, including not only what I got, but where I got it and the time of it, so people can tell whether it's still relevant. You might have other certificates, like, for example, serving it right or a Class 1 driver's license, and you want to include them. There may be things I haven't thought of. If they seem like they might be relevant, then include them. They communicate to people that you're a learner, as well as talking about the specific skill that you learned in that course. For me, for example, I put in my coaching training. And your grade 12 also should be included in there. Now, this section is something that's unique for people, and I cannot stress enough to you 2 important things. First, it must be your own words. Don't go looking for something out of a book. Second, keep it concise. Here, we take a moment and we stop and think about a values statement that really is unique to us. You can't get it from others. You can't get it from a book. It has to be something that you particularly believe or value, that in a quick moment communicates to the employer what you're all about, gives them again a chance to connect with you personally. So for example, mine says we're designed to make the world better, and we cannot be truly fulfilled until we find our own way of doing so. Now, yours is going to be different. It has to be different. If you do the same thing as me or somebody else, you're completely communicating to the person the opposite thing. You're completely communicating that you're not unique, that you don't have an independence of thought. If you get messed up with formatting this, it's a centered portion. You can see that when I click on it, it shows you it's formatted by centering and it's italicized. And notice, very important, that it's in quotation marks because it's saying that you said this. Don't put somebody else's name below it so they can see that. And technically, this is the resume. These first 2 pages are the resume. What we've got next is the references. Now, references, there's a very good chance you're going to be added to type these into the application later on. That's fine. So whether or not you attach this form or are just glad that you have it, it's going to really not matter. But I can tell you I had many, many times when people came into my office for an interview and they were asked for references and they didn't have them. And they had to start asking for us to let them have access to the internet or to use phone books. And it looks really unprofessional. So if you can show people that you've already come prepared to provide references, you're going to be in much better shape. The second thing is you must understand these have to be professional references. If you haven't got a lot of professional references in our sector, that's okay. You can go to professional references from other sectors, such as, in my case, the supervisor I had in my paint store job. This is all fictitious, but this person will still be able to describe things like my punctuality, my ability to take feedback, my professionalism, all the sorts of things that employers will care about. So I started with the 2 that I think I'd like them to call first. By the way, I want to make sure these people are actually okay with me being being references for me. I contact them, confirm they're still there, confirm that their access to information is the same, and let them know that I've done this. To this day, I get emails from people 10 years after they graduated. Hey, Paul, I'm going for a promotion, or I'm going for a transfer. Just wanted to let you know, is it still okay to use you as a reference? Is this still the right email address? So you want to continuously do that. And you type down here the name of the school that you want or place that you're applying to. You type in the date that you sign this, and I've shown you on the earlier part of the video how to sign this. You can sign it so that they can then go ahead and send it without needing to do any of the form. Even if they get you to do it all over again, you're just communicating, I came ready and I have nothing to hide. If you're really, really, really hard up for employment references, you can use volunteer references, and you cannot use personal references. You can use me here, you can use educational references, but you cannot use personal references. And the reason that I'm good is because I'm your career educator. Your grade 12 teacher is probably not going to be very valuable to you here. Not sure what to do, don't have enough for your resume yet, go get some more volunteer experience or talk to the employer about that. All right, that's going to end this video. It's going to give you a starting place, and I expect that you'll need help along the way. That's normal. If you think that you're going to get it done without any kind of typos or errors along the way, that's unlikely. But get started, and after you've done a bit of work, check in and see whether you're on track. Good luck.